With that said, find yourself in any position that you feel drawn to be in. It doesn't even have to be comfortable. Just relax into your own presence. Perhaps allow your eyes to close. And it's very powerful when your eyes are closed. If you ask yourself, what is the body? And normally what happens is an image, a created image of your body appears. And that image is normally clothed and doing something. So when we think of our body, the body that we relate to, we often relate mostly to that image. But that image absolutely is not the body. Whatever you think about the body, or whatever appears to you as the body, is not the body. It's normally a thought, as in a word or an image about the body. In my experience, and you can explore this, the body, if anything at all, is an apparent collection of sensations that appear in consciousness. So when your eyes are closed and you focus on your feet touching the floor, that sensation could be deemed to be included in the body. And then when your seat is supported, wherever it is supported, on a chair, bed, floor, cushion, there's another sensation that we could deem the body. And if you just continue in your own time to explore sensations within the category of body, you start to see that a more accurate, and it's still not correct, but a more accurate understanding of the body is a collection of sensations as appearances in pure space. Explore the distance between the tip of your nose and your heel of your foot. What's there? So from this more open perspective of what the body is, when pain arises or discomfort, it's slightly easier to be with it. when all of the mental construction is dropped away, the images and the labeling. So rather than my X hurts and an image of this part of the body hurting and the stress that causes, which all compound these sensations, instead what we have is just an appearance of a certain tone among other appearances, all seemingly floating in space. It's much less personal this way. There's much less me involved, and it is me that is the sufferer. And if you choose to go further, you can start to see that there isn't even a body. The body is just a label we give to this collection of circumstances. And if you let go of that label, then what? There's just a knowingness that we call experiencing. But even that can be too much. There's just knowing. Knowing itself. And this doesn't mean we deny the body, try to get rid of it, try to be without. The mind will continue to construct a very convincing image of the body. You will continue to relate to your body in a completely normal way, whether you're getting dressed or going for a walk. But this true understanding of the empty nature of the body is a great support to underline and support you during your day, particularly when bodily sensations become intense. It is often the bodily sensations that are the most difficult to see through. And that's why it's good practice to grow more familiar with your body in the way that we've just done. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Slowly make your way back to including all of the other sensations. It is quite nice when you open your eyes to maintain the same depth as the visual field, and then the mind stream reactivates. It's just as empty and still as everything else. And then we're going to open it up for questions by raising your hand in the system. Otherwise, we can just sit here. It's all good. And I thought I saw Claire's hand up. Please go ahead.
Can you
Oh, I accidentally muted you. Sorry. There you go.
hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. I can't see. Oh, yeah, I can see you now. I was going to say I don't think I can see you either. It's just a quick one. It's my first time here.
Well,
Thank you. And I was invited by my friend Lee. And I've been on a bit of an interesting journey. So he thought it might be helpful for me, and it has been, to kind of look at things from this perspective. I'm struggling. I'm suffering, and I know that's not, that's part of the human experience. So that's fine. It was just something that you were saying at the beginning about the body and the sensations, and seeing the body as a collection of sensations as opposed to it being a body. And I just couldn't work it out in my head, because when you said, I know that's my mind, but trying to get from my nose to the heel of my foot, for example, try to think about the distance. I can perceive that. But then when you say there's no body, but tangibly that we can feel a body, do you mean in an energetic sense? I'm trying to work it out in my head. I know I shouldn't probably be trying to work anything out.
no, it's good to try and it's good to work things out in your head, and sometimes not. And there are no rules,
Okay.
but it comes from a very old Buddhist philosophy, like that there is no cup. It's
Yes.
like, but there clearly is a cup. But is the handle the cup? Right? So take away the handle. So is the rim the cup? Is the clay the cup? So the cup is what the mind does to formulate an object,
Right.
but
So it's the
none of the
label.
things, yeah, so none of the things that it's using to formulate the cup are the cup. None of the things you use to formulate the body are the body. And you can break that down to feet, legs, arms. Okay, well, let's have a look at the feet. Are the toes the feet? Is the sole of the feet the feet? So what it's highlighting is opening up the possibility to understand that your mind is a fabricating tool. And when you ultimately drill down to what remains, it's just consciousness. It's just consciousness is at the root of that. And it doesn't mean you have to spend all of your days walking around saying, my body doesn't exist, because it clearly appears, right? It clearly appears. And for a human being, it's a very significant, it is the most significant object that we ever encounter. But it is still a fabrication of the mind from all of these different appearances that have no end. They are all based on dependent origination. And at the root of that is just consciousness. So it's a way, the way that you can use it if you're in suffering is you can relax into these array of appearances So we might be going, oh, let's say I've got a toothache actually. So I could be saying, I've got a toothache and I've got a toothache. And what my mind will do is it will bother me all day telling me I've got a toothache, I've got a toothache, I've got a toothache, because it's creating this thing. But my actual experience is there's an intensity, there's an intense vibe, right? And it's intermittent. Sometimes I'm aware of it, sometimes I'm not. So already I didn't have a toothache all day. And then when I close my eyes, what is a tooth? Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's just the appearance. And then when you look into even the sensation, even that breaks down into various sensations. There's a warmth, there's a kind of pin sensation in the middle of it, but it's not all like it just becomes more open, more spacious, and you're more able to be with these difficult sensations because you're removing the suffering that the mind creates. You're still left with what would appear to be a pain. It's not as if the pain goes away, but so much of our suffering is caused by our mind fabricating, speculating, and resisting. So with the toothache, if I just allow it, already it's more manageable. So it isn't. So these types of conversations, I don't use them as a way to lead someone into a complete experience of emptiness. That's something that we can explore ourselves. It's just to introduce a perspective about your experience that is more accurate to your reality, and it's more comfortable. It's really not quite that simple. If you feel
Mm.
suffering, look into what's suffering. It will appear in the body as breathing, as tension, but then what's tension? All of these things have to be given the quality attributed to them by the mind, right?
Yep. No, that makes, even as you said it, it kind of went, ah, yeah, okay, yeah. I felt the spaciousness that you
Great.
were.
Yeah. And we do, I just want to say one thing. Sorry for cutting you off. We do this in life. Someone who is want consciously gets on a roller coaster. They're seeking fear and they love it. But if you're in a car pelting down a hill, you're terrified and you hate it. Both of those are just the experience of intensity. So in some ways, understanding your true nature and experiencing life from there, because you reduce the sense of me, then everything's a roller coaster because there's no one to crash, right? If your identity of yourself is lessened to being the identity of me, Joe is in trouble and is going to become hurt. That's way more scary than I am pure space and or I am awareness, and whether my body exists or not, I am.
Mm.
So you create by this perspective, you begin to cultivate a sense of safety, a sense of indestructibility, not for your body because the body is definitely a, a time limited experience.
Yeah.
But what you truly are is infinite, eternal, indestructible, unwavering. It never changes. The same person or the same looking that you had when you was 3 or 7 or 12 or now, it's the same looking and it never changes. So we are cultivating a true identity of true nature rather than the separate self that has a body and suffers. We become the knower of that experience rather than the object of that suffering.
Yeah.
And so there's analogies that can help. The iceberg is one that I like to talk about. The iceberg melting into the ocean. It's probably terrified if it had our faculties, because it doesn't think it's the ocean, but it's all made of water, and it's literally going home to its true nature, which is water. So that we experience that while we have apparently have these bodies, we can actually experience our true nature as as consciousness in which the body has appeared.
Mm. Mm. That's really beautiful, actually, to think of it like that.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's of some benefit, and thank you for coming along. And yeah, Lee's very dedicated and skillful in these understandings, so that's a good contact. Okay, we've got two questions, one from Siddhartha and then one from Gajani afterwards. So I'll just move that. Siddhartha was just a little bit first, I believe. And yeah, good to see you. What's your question?
Right. I do. Am I audible? Can
Yeah, I
you
can
hear me
hear.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So last week's pointing served very well. And as I got a chance to kind of just switching my mind as you asked me to, uh, I realized something, that what has stopped or has prevented this silence to become more steady and more long term has been an underlying fear, which I can now sense. I've sensed it before, but I can see that there is a fear that keeps pushing me into my mind, where I'm constantly going to it to handle things and essentially not do what you keep referring to, which is let things be, let things be as they are. And the fear, I guess, is that maybe while growing up, or uh, um, when I looked around, I was fairly sensitive. I could see there are things that can happen to me, and a belief developed that if it were to happen to me, the intensity of those things is so strong that I won't be able to handle it. Essentially, a belief is there that there are certain things I can't just let them be if they were to happen to me. And I need to use my mind to prevent that from happening in advance. This is the only thing I have to somehow negotiate a favorable outcome, if it were to happen. And because there is a fair amount of faith in my mental abilities, I mean, I do have a fairly sharp mind, which has gotten me out of difficult situations before, but has taken me into much bigger problems than I eventually got out of. Well, I can see that, but this is the only thing that I have, and this is where as far as I can see now, what I'm trying to do now is just sit with that fear, because until I kind of move past that fear, to be able to truly do what you keep referring to is allow things to be as they are, will not be possible.
Okay, so who fears?
I haven't paid too much attention to who fears. I just realized that there is fear.
That doesn't time with what you said earlier. It definitely feels like that you are discussing about you stopping yourself, letting things be as they are because you fear. If there was only fear
Ah,
appearing on its own, then you would be that would be a more comfortable experience. There does seem to be that, like when you share, it's good, and it sounds like that you're engaged, very much still engaged in this process. The image that came to mind is a boy wanting to go into a paddling pool. This just came randomly. A boy wanting to go into a paddling pool and it's scared, and it's going back and forth between the paddling pool and not being a paddling pool. And then there's like a father figure watching it who doesn't really mind whether the boy goes in the pool or not. It's like it sees the game. It sees the game at play. And for you, it's really important that you ask, when these things come, who is the one experiencing these fears? Who is the one that's very, very active in this process? Because there is a part of you that's just watching. There's a part of you that's just watching. It's just watching this. If you can do it right now, you'll see that there's thoughts. You can hear my voice. There's your story that you've told. There's your relationship with these teachings and images of past. And there's something that's just watching.
Yes. There's awareness that watches. Yes.
That part that's watching, can that feel fear?
No, it contains fear.
What is it? What if it contains fear?
It carries fear. Fear appears in it.
Fear appears in it. So can the fear that appears within that knowing self affect the knower, you?
No. What it does is kicks something else. Yeah, that's what happens.
But
So the fear just kicks a response. Yeah.
Right, but it doesn't affect the knower. So what's happening with you is that when these things come along, rather than being the knower, and this is very common, like the whole world does this, so it's not like you're doing anything wrong. But what happens is you jump back into the story. Whenever there's anything, you jump back into the story, and then you start trying to do non-duality from duality, and it just gets very confusing. Right? It's very confusing. How can I find this? How can I let go of this fear? What can I do to become more awake? That character is already completely awake from the perspective of the knower, but from the perspective of the character, it can never be awake.
This is what I used to do. What I have changed, which has worked a little bit, is when I jump onto that story and it's frightening or there's anxiety or whatever that is, I have learned to at least let it be, at least that anxiety be. I don't fight it as much as I used to.
That's good. But I would inquire, who is that? Am I that? Am I this thought? Like, if I am that, then what knows it? Like for you, it's very clear that direct inquiry can be quite useful, because whenever we go down that path, like when the last session we did, when at the end we just said, just stop, just shh.
Yeah.
It's getting out of the game.
Yes.
Right. You can't find. It's like the way that I would describe it right now is that there's a screen, and there's an actor on the screen, which is your appearance of self. And this actor's going through these stories trying to liberate itself. But really, the screen is who you are. The field in which you're appearing is your nature, not what's appearing. Now, they're not two. That's why it's called non-duality. The appearance of you in the screen as this actor and the screen are not two. However, it's very easy for you to collapse into the character, so there's no more screen. And when we do that, it's great from the perspective of the movie because we believe everything. But we lose, but we're not trying to engage in the movie here. We're trying to, not even trying, we're exploring liberation. And liberation is a stepping back to just, I'm also the screen. A way to, a little intermediate step could be like, I'm the one watching the movie. So we put another character in there rather than the screen, which can seem a little bit difficult for some people. I'm watching the movie, or I'm projecting. I've got the projector. I'm projecting the movie, and you're going to get absorbed into the character and the story. But the practice isn't to try and figure out the story, which is what you sometimes do, or even try to allow the story to be as it is from the position of the person in the movie. It's to completely come back and just be like, I'm just watching this movie. I'm just watching this thing. And it becomes like, one thing that happens is that it becomes less interesting, right?
Yes.
How you're relating to it, you're still very interested in all of this. And it just will exhaust. It will exhaust. It's exhausting. But when you're sitting there, you know you're no longer so engaged. Then all of the engagement faculties, it just becomes more relaxing. One way I often describe it is, it's like if you were born in a if you were born in a cinema, and you never knew any other world. All you knew was the cinema and the movies that appeared. You would be crying at any death, totally devastated, terrified of what was coming next, grossly in love when it was a love movie. You'd be lost completely to every movie. And that can be fun in some parts of life, but it's actually exhausting. And that's how most people live. They don't, that they're in these movies, and that it's all so important. It's so important. What Karen said at work, what my paycheck is, what my partner said, what am I going to do tomorrow? It's just so intensely important. And then you're in this cinema, and someone actually says to you, "Have you ever seen outside the cinema?" You're like, "What do you mean?" Like, "No, I've never seen that." And they take you to a door and they show you that you've been living in a cinema your whole life. They explain what movies are. So this is insight. This isn't someone in the cinema going, "I'm going to allow this movie to be as it is," but they still think they're in a cinema, because that's very hard to do, right? The allowing things to be as they are is significantly easier when someone shows you this is just a cinema. There's a projector, and these films are made by people, and they're all actors. And then when you go back into the cinema, you still enjoy the movie, which is our actual reality at the cinema. But then when we come out, we have a little bit of a chit chat about the story, and we go on about our day. I didn't spend months because Spider-Man died, whatever, and now like my life is ruined. It's entertainment, and it's good, and there, and it's the same with our lives. And it's not to belittle the tragedies that occur in our lives. We don't snicker at the death of a loved one. But what happens is that because we're the one who knows that it's a cinema, it gives us the capacity to feel fully in these difficult events, but also maintain stability for everybody else. And what's happening in your case is that you are not providing the stability for yourself. You are jumping in to the foray, and this is not saying you're doing anything wrong. Everybody does this anyway, but just from the perspective of these non-duality paths, you are jumping into the foray, and your job as true nature is to wake up and say, no, we don't even need to figure out who's thinking, who's fear, we don't, why is it any of that matters when we truly know that it's just awareness, it's just consciousness, the dynamic energy of consciousness appearing in a myriad of ways, this great display, this one unified realm of singularity that is also has this quality to be so dynamic and movement. When we truly know what that is, we never even need to do a practice. I recommend it, but we don't actually even need to practice because we already know. We know the nature. We know it's a cinema, right? That is the difference. If you're in a cinema and you're watching a scary movie and fear comes up, there's not one part of you that says, right, I need to figure out why I'm feeling fear. What should I do about this fear? I think maybe I should see a therapist. Or no, the fear comes up and it's not like you're trying to be with it. That's why you went to the cinema. That's why you're there, to experience that. So why would you then need to massage and work on it? You've arrived in this realm as consciousness to enjoy all of this.
So are you asking me to at this moment step back a little bit, something like a neti, or you're saying
inquire into when these things appear, inquire into their nature. And I'm not saying you're going to come up with any particular answer. Just say, what is this? Because it's just going to prevent a little bit the total engagement. What is this? And because you're a very, like, you've been doing this a long time, so all of the insight is there. It's just what's in front of it is the mind going bunk, like jumping in.
Yes.
And all you need to do is just allow the wisdom that you've already accumulated to be present first. What is this? Whatever it is, who is that? Why is that? What is going on with that? Let's just look at that. What is that fear? Oh, it's just appearing. Like it's going to create time for your already ingrained understanding to become a support to your life, rather than that. Because minds are powerful minds are useful, but they can really get in the way sometimes of
that's what's happening.
Because but let me just say one thing before we degrade the mind. They're beautiful. It's amazing that you have such an active mind. It's a phenomenon. Like the story I told last week, I think it was last week, about the guy saying, yeah, but look at the TV. Yeah, but look at the mind. Wow. Like when you have that, I would be sitting there going, like my mind would say something really stupid to me. And like I used to get a lot of critical voices. You're rubbish at whatever it is. Your music is terrible. And that used to make me not play music when I was younger. And through this process of awakening, that voice, I'm like, wow, isn't that amazing? That I can experience that there's something in me that can look at some activity that I'm doing and decide I used to find it quite funny, quite genius in a way. So love your mind, love it from its act, from like the TV. Don't get so involved in what it's doing. Be more fascinated that it does. That it does. It's the doing, the mind doing, that's the most interesting thing about the mind, not what it's doing. That it's doing. Think about it. Fear, hunger, regret, grief, worry, confusion, awakening, pleasure, problem solving, just, protection, all the things it's doing. It's way more interesting that it does. Wow, my mind does. That's what I'm saying with you. Like, appreciate become the magnanimous. The Tibetans use the monarch. They call the consciousness the monarch of life, And they use that because it's this posture where you are the monarch of your own experience. Consciousness, you, is the monarch of all experience. And it just enjoys the jester and the show of itself without becoming too involved. And then it becomes enjoyable. You start to laugh, honestly, you start to laugh. You start to laugh so much at yourself. I remember when I first realized that the entire first, 30 years of my life or whatever it was centered around 5 different things. It was like food, dating, money, how much I don't like myself, and how much other people don't like me. Those 5 thoughts were just everything. And I was like, there is a lot more experiences going on than, why do I pick those 5? So I'll just say one thing. So those, we all have this. This is an extension of what I'm saying. We all have this focus that the mind is on, and it's whatever's going on, and it can be very repetitive. So I just said what mine was. Someone else might be, I'm depressed. I don't like my family. I really like. I'm here for my kids. I like my job as an engineer, but how am I going to like? It might be that, right? What we encourage is perceptual openness. Perceptual openness is when you're resting as awareness, and those 5 things become diluted into all experience. The wind from the fan, the sense of spaciousness, the voice I can hear down the hallway, the camera, the lighting, the breathing, the bodily sensations. It's all just gently bubbling along, and you're not being fixated. You're not collapsing into any one particular object. Now, we will do, if I want to drink a cup of my tea, I momentarily focus on here. I notice that it's empty, and full rage comes up. I'm only joking. I notice it's empty and I put it down. So I momentarily focused in, but I'm not living in that intensity of focus, right? And the most complicated thing we can focus on that intensely is ourselves. If you ever want to get completely lost, right, focus on your brain patterns as if they really matter all day, every day, right? They really don't matter. So you develop perceptual openness. You're open, you're relaxed. You're not giving more quality or more status to one appearance over the other. And this gets very, very deep because it's part of the Dzogchen process, or the emptiness of all experience. And they will say things like, the cup as awareness is no more important than your very life. As awareness, it's just awareness. So imagine the screen I mentioned earlier. The cup on the screen is just as valid as the actor on the screen. They're just screen. But if you buy into the story, then the actor, me, is way more important than the cup. Now, I'm not saying we should adjust all, start saying stupid stuff like, rights for cups or no rights for people. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the true understanding our true nature. That's all we're talking about here. And from that perspective, resting, perceptual open, allowing all experience to heave ho without so much attachment or no sense of personal self. You hear it saying there's just happening. That's a more Advaita Vedanta way of talking about it, but it's the same thing. That there's just appearances rising and falling, and I'm one of them, and so is everything I think and feel. but they're just all rising and falling, and I can allow that, the whole Evo, but not because I'm trying to allow it, because I know what it is. It's just consciousness, it's insight into the nature of self that creates liberation.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Gojani, I'm just going to mute you.
Me? Can you hear me? Now I cannot hear you. Okay, I'll just ask my question. What is your view on, does the character in the movie, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Does the character in the movie has any influence on the movie? And I'm not saying you should not do anything, but I keep flickering. Like sometimes I'm in a conversation and I see my what I speak is not what I intended to do, and I flicker out like, why did it came out like that? And sometimes I have the feeling like, I'm not saying you should do anything, but it feels like everything is already, how you say, done as it is, because I keep flickering, and I'm like, from the person to the seeing, that's kind of things.
Joe, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, this is such a lovely question. It really is. Does the character affect the movie? I know the answer, but it takes a while to establish the right way to say it. So what I would say is this, is all of the things that we do, all of the things we strive towards, all of the things we try to create, almost none of them work out. Almost none of them work out. They go along on this thing, and you feel like they're working out because good things happen and some bad things happen. But it's like if I look at all the things I've tried to create in my life, one of them was definitely not for a very long time sitting here talking to you lot, or living in Thailand, or whatever else is going on in my life. It's almost none of it is planned. The separate self kind of, it's like the clown that takes the bow. Like, I claim the good things. Yeah, I'm sure this is what I was planning, but it rarely is a direct line. And I sometimes talk a little bit about this in the self-help field, where you have all people who've achieved some success teaching other people how to do it, but there's almost no one replicates it. They just do something else that's also successful or not. So I really started to see that we don't really have, on some level, we don't have a capacity to affect the movie, but we really enjoy affecting the movie, right? We really enjoy trying to affect the movie because it feels so real in the short term. We have observations like, I wanted to do this call, so I booked this call, and you wanted to be on the call, and you booked the call, and here you are. That is concrete evidence that all of us here affected the movie. But if you step back from that, right, who birthed you? What makes you interested in this subject? Did you choose that? Did you sometimes say, you know what, I think I want to be interested in something to do with, like, we're not. I am more and more convinced that the depth of relationship between the separate self that we identify as and pure consciousness is so unfathomable that it's just pure beauty. It's just purely beautiful. And one of my personal views, which I tend to not share as much in this context because I don't want to create belief systems, but I believe that the absolute is this pure consciousness that's divulged into a billion sentient experiences over eons so it can experience absolutely everything. And whether you're a stillborn baby or you live to 120 with 5 generations, you didn't choose it. It's just the absolute, non-personally exploring every facet of a sentient being, including all animals and everything else, to know itself. Because the sum of all of that is pure consciousness experienced, right? So, and this is a speculation, but before divulging into all of these appearances, it just knows itself as consciousness. Then by divulging into everything, it gets to know itself, Satchit Ananda, the bliss of knowing oneself. But it's a billion different experiences, of none of which are in control. But they're all equally valid and they're all equally beautiful. Right?
It
So
feels like that. I have to say, it feels like that. It gets tricky in situations where you might hurt other people or your emotions, and then it's like to see like, okay, but that's also in character, but you as a separate entity feel those things, and then it's like, okay, you try to, but let's say you try to relieve that, and then you just see other words flash and you're like, oh, like that's what I mean. You're like, I sometimes flicker like, oh, from being the actor to seeing what's happening, and it's like, wow, okay, without judgment, like, oh, that came as a surprise, and then it feels like I think this was already set to go like that.
yeah,
Because
I think I love what you said there. I think in the short term, like it doesn't have to be one or the other. In the short term, there clearly is a capacity to be of benefit, right? And this is very, very powerful to know this. So my brother has a mental illness. He's been in the hospital now for the last 3 years, but it's been on and off for the last 30. And I used to try and affect the path of his life. And it used to be exhausting. I used to go and live with him, help him with get off medications, do exercise and stuff like that. And all what used to happen is it would hurt me. You know, you've got a flywheel spinning at 100, one at 30. We both end up at 60, and then I'm suffering, and he's a little bit better. And then as soon as I leave, he goes back to form, goes back to whatever he's doing and with his path in life. But what I do realize is that I have a conversation with him almost every day. I have a little joke with him. He has a bit of a funny. He feels connected and he goes on. So being compassionate to people in our lives, being of benefit, not holding on to strong arguments, being ego free. Hey, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I didn't mean to do that. All of these compassionate, benevolent actions is part of being awake, right? That one of the greatest signs of accomplishment when it comes to following these paths is you just become a more compassionate person for others. You just do. But that's not the same as trying to rescue someone's life, right? Because then that's mind coming in. And it may be that that's the beauty of this paradox, that part of your own awakening is realizing you can't even help yourself really, right? But in the short term you can, right? So with me, I'm diabetic. I do everything I can to help myself as much as I can to not be diabetic, but I can't stop myself being hit by a car tomorrow, right? And I can't stop the causes and conditions that appeared that made me diabetic. And even if people say, well, you shouldn't have eaten McDonald's. Well, I didn't make McDonald's appear in my environment. Like, do you know, like where's the line? There isn't one. So I approach it like, I don't know what's going to happen. And some things happen in my life that I could never, ever predict, ever, ever. Some good, some bad. And I just feel like I'm not really doing this. I have this little bit of capacity to influence 4 or 5 things local to me, but that scene is not anything I have control of. If I was to put you in a room and you can turn the TV on, you can tidy up, you can make a sandwich, great, you've got free will. But who put you in the room? How did you end up there? Who built the room? Do you know what I mean? It's like that. It's and I'm also starting to, so one thing I will add is that, and this is not something which there's a little bit of ego that can be involved in this, but I do think dancing with yourself as practitioners of non-duality does provide something in life that's supremely beneficial regardless of what appears. I sometimes say that when you start to love what is becomes what you love. So if I live in a crappy council estate, which I used to, I grew up on one, and I don't like it, or let's say that I start to say, you know what, this is how I am. I love it here. I'm just going to love this. Just doing that starts to create the field for other possibilities because now you're at peace. So I do think there's a little bit of a. I wouldn't want to own it because it could get very, what's that, law of attraction type vibe. You know, I'm not saying if you really think hard about having something, it will appear. I don't subscribe to that at all. But I do think that if you develop beautiful relationships with your friends, family, and surroundings, even if you're not engaged fully, that alone creates a beautiful world. Because what is a beautiful world other than a series of beautiful experiences that you're having with everything you interact with? So that's what I would say. This practice alone, I'll sum it up by this. The Absolute, in all of its wisdom, appears to have given the separate selves the capacity to make peace with everything by knowing its true nature. And when you do that, how can the world be more beautiful than everything as it is? So yeah, but keep trying to affect it. It's fun. My pleasure. All right, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you everyone for joining today. It's really funny, these guys. I never know what they're going to be about, but that's very enjoyable. And I'll see you next week.